And I will share my screen. Let me get chat open so I can monitor that as well. All right. I'm going to try to keep an eye on chat as I go along, but I do have two monitors. So if you see me looking away, I'm looking at my other monitor. So as you all know, we have this ambitious goal to become a zero textbook cost college, and we have made some huge progress on this. I was asked to start working on this project in fall of 2021. Initially, it was supposed to be 1 year, and we were going to try to achieve this goal by fall of 2022, which I told President Bush was impossible, but I would do my best. And we were using primarily COVID relief funds to help fund this. And so President Bush's idea was that let's try to push as much money into this so that we are making an impact immediately with our immediate students, but also have a long-term impact with other generations of students. So a lot of colleges actually use that funding to purchase rental textbooks for their students, and they provided free textbooks for their students for a semester or a year, but then that money was gone and had been spent, and there was really nothing to show for it. So I do think that President Bush had some amazing vision in using this money in a different way. And what it has translated to, for fall of 2022, we saved our students about $1.6 million in textbook costs. Last spring, about $2 million in textbook costs. This fall, we're on tap for more than $2 million. We're still kind of looking at the numbers, but we've seen exponential growth in the number of sections. So the semester that I started this, we had 162 zero textbook cost sections. This fall, I just looked at it last night, we have 853 sections so far, and there are a few more that I know just haven't been tagged properly, and so I need to go in and we're going to do a manual tag to those. But right now we have 65% of our class sections are zero textbook costs. This is way more than any other Los Rios college. Even ARC, the biggest college, we are far surpassing the number of sections that they are offering. So you all should be very, very proud of this work. I'm really proud of this work, and I think that we are making a huge impact. We have had, and I think because there's been so much momentum, that faculty have been really, really excited about this. And even some faculty who have been initially reluctant to try to tackle this eventually see the value in it and gets some excitement, I think, even from their peers within their departments, and think, hey, you know, we can do this and let's go for it. So I'm been super thankful for that, because I think that's how we've been able to achieve this amazing success so far. So some of the key things that that have been able to make this happen is the amount of money that's been put into it. So the first year and then last year, because there was an extension on being able to spend that COVID relief money, we were primarily using HEERF funds. This year, there's been some creative things happening. I know we're using some money from the Chancellor's office that was set aside for zero textbook cost work. The district office saw the value in this and actually pumped in $1 million that was spread through all 4 colleges. So that's helped fund this. And that has helped allow me to work on this project full time. So I am a librarian, but I am on release from the library, and we've been able to fund a long-term temporary to try to pick up some of the slack within my department for me taking on this project. And that has allowed me to really be a constant support for faculty, which has been, I think, instrumental in doing this work. Oftentimes, even at the other 3 colleges, they do have librarians working on this, but not full time. And so often they're given a 0.2 or a 0.4. And when you are classroom faculty, it's pretty easy to equate that 0.2 or a 0.4 to, I'm just not going to teach this class or 2 classes, and I'm going to work on this project instead. But in the library, when you give a librarian 0.2, usually many of the other duties don't go away. And there are projects that we work on that are long-term projects that require relationships within the department and historical knowledge. And it's not something that you can just put somebody in that position for a short term. Even if they're picking up that 0.2 or 0.4, they're often not able to pick up the long-term projects that we often are working on. So having an LTT has been helpful. It's still not a perfect situation. I've been fighting locally at the district level, and now I'm starting to push it at the chancellor's office level, that this needs to be a long-term position, that just like we have distance education coordinators and tutoring coordinators and other coordinators on campus, you need to have an OER/zero textbook cost coordinator, because you're constantly hiring new faculty, new things are constantly being released, and you have to have somebody who's working on this work. Another thing that has helped us be so successful is I created this repository that has all of this information in one place. And that is the Zero Textbook Costs at CRC website that we created for the project. So if you haven't visited this site, it just has a whole bunch of resources to help support faculty. And now we have resources for even our classified professionals who are supporting students. And that work is going to continue over the next year. It's organized by CAC, so the homepage, it just shows each CAC, and then within each CAC, there's a specific page for individual disciplines. And when you click on an individual page, if a class is offered as zero textbook costs, that's listed up at the top. So it has the course, the name of the course, the instructor who's teaching it as zero textbook cost, and what they're using. If I know that information, sometimes I don't know that information, and sometimes you'll see things like this, freely available resources, but I don't necessarily know exactly what they're using. At the state level, the State Academic Senate has an initiative called the Open Educational Resources Initiative that is funded at least for the next year, and I anticipate that they will continue funding that because they've done such amazing work. There are discipline leads for many disciplines, and if there is one assigned, I list that person here. They also have a page, dedicated pages on their website with resources that have been created through their RFP project, or other things that they found that are appropriate for, and it's organized usually by CID. And then for each discipline, we have a list of all the classes that are offered within that discipline, the name of the course, if there is a CID. So if you're not familiar with CID, it is the identification that is added to courses so that our numbering system is going to be different than College of the Canyons, but the CID lets us know that our Journalism 300 is equivalent to their class that also has this CID, the Journalism 110. And that's for articulation agreements and other things to make sure that we're covering the things that the transfer institutions want us to cover. It has a link to the course outline of record from Socrates. It has, if there are people who are teaching at a ZTC, it actually links back to this page. And then it has suggested resources. And then if you scroll down a little bit further, in some cases, librarians have done some research for individual classes, and sometimes it's for an entire discipline. And these are just Google Docs that list suggested resources for individual classes, including in some cases library material. So not necessarily OER, but other freely available material. And then there's just a whole bunch of other stuff on this website. So in addition to the CACs, there's a professional development page that has lots of different resources. There's an events calendar. I might suggest you think about bookmarking this, because I put all of the OERI events on here that aren't necessarily on the faculty and staff calendar. I tried to coordinate with that office, but for whatever reason, we just have a hard time getting our events on their calendar. And then also there's some OpenStax events that have been happening. And so those are added to this calendar as well. And there's a how-to section as well. So the newest page of the website is sharing this information with students. There's a social media toolkit. So if you have your own personal social media pages, there are videos or images that you can share on various social media platforms. We've created a Canvas Commons shell that has a module that explains ZTC to students. And then there's a module for faculty who are teaching a zero textbook cost with some sample pages that you can pull into your own course, and then you just need to change the link to your textbook. So there's sample pages for using OER through LibreText, and for if you are using library material, so ProQuest ebooks, EBSCO ebooks, or controlled digital lending. There is a page, this page is just a Google Doc, and it has all of this information in one document. So this might be something that you would bookmark as well, just so you have access to everything in one place. And then there's a folder that has some promotional material like bookmarks or posters, and we're going to be building this out a little bit more this semester. Some of the research that we've done. So last November, the research office did some focus groups with students. And some of the things that came out of that focus group was that cost definitely had a bearing on enrollment decisions. So students are paying attention to this. They're looking at the cost of textbooks, and they're making decisions on what classes they enroll in. And I just gave a keynote speech last week at a conference, an online conference for OER. And a message that I keep pounding over and over again, that this really is an equity issue. And if we are concerned about creating spaces that are serving as many students as possible, we need to be looking at the cost of textbooks. I also think it has an issue. It's related to lack of diversity in certain fields in STEM and in technology, because those courses tend to have really high textbook costs. And if we want more students to have access to that material, we should be offering free options. And we are at CRC. So our science department is fully on board. Almost every single science section that we're teaching is offered a zero textbook cost. There's very few that are still using a commercial textbook. Same with math. We've just seen huge progress in both of those areas. ZTC courses, we're helping them meet their expenses in other areas. So students were talking about childcare issues and being able to purchase food for even just groceries, not having to think about purchasing a textbook was allowing them to meet basic needs. And they really felt positive about this. This was, you know, they were totally on board with this. This next slide is just some quotes that came out of that focus group. So I'm just going to pause and let you read a few of those. So some of the things that I've heard a lot, even in conversations with students, is often they purchase a required textbook and then they never actually use it. And that can be so frustrating. And then the other one that I'd like to point out is the one at the bottom. So our students who are relying on financial aid or EOP&S, where they might be getting a voucher for their textbooks, they don't get that before school starts. For financial aid, they don't get it. If everything is perfectly aligned and all of their paperwork is great, they still don't get that check until 2 weeks or so into the semester. And if there are any issues, it can be longer than that. And our EOP&S students, there are kind of some checks and balances built within that system, which means they don't get that voucher before school starts either. So if you have it in the back of your mind that, oh, my students are getting financial aid, they can cover the cost of this textbook. That may be true, but they're not going to have it on the first day of class. So the best way to make sure that everybody in your class has access to the material on the very first day and they're prepared and ready to start learning with you is to use open educational resources or try to find zero textbook cost options through the college library. Other research that the research office has done for me, they did an analysis of ZTC versus non-ZTC sections that showed slightly higher success rates. They also did an analysis that showed that textbooks that had higher costs, so $150 or more, had higher pre-census drop rates in the first few weeks of the semester. And one really cool thing that that the research office did for me last year is they added zero textbook costs into the Hawks Nest data dashboard. So if you've ever looked at this, this is through the research office, and it is connected to both enrollment data and course success data. So you can actually come in here, you can look at a specific program, or you can look at the entire college, and now you can equate it. You can look at it, the data compared to looking at ZTC course status. So enrollment, you can see we've just grown exponentially because we're now offering so many zero textbook costs sections. And this is the reason that we were able to do this is we're now required to report this data to the chancellor's office. So there's a data element within our class schedule, and it's now it's easy to pull out, and that's how we can get this data. Okay, what's next? Moving ahead, 2 days ago, the chancellor's office released details about what they're calling acceleration grants. So this funding is designed to create zero textbook cost degree and certificate pathways. And they're really interested in career and technical education programs and transfer degree pathways. We've already done so much work in this, but I'm going to be meeting with administrators hopefully in the next week to figure out which of these grants or how many of these grants we want to apply for and how we're going to be using that funding. It's a very tight timeline. The applications are due by September 15th, but also they're supposed to turn around the funding very quickly. So we are supposed to get the funding this October if we are approved. And so there are some programs where I know that we are ZTC, but we might be relying on a commercial textbook for 1 or 2 classes. So I'm going to be working with those programs to see if we might be able to convert those to an open educational resource, which would be more sustainable over time. There are some areas, like a lot of the sciences, they've created their own lab manuals and other materials. And it's really great because it's shared internally within our department, but I would love to share that information more widely and perhaps convert those to open educational resources so that others across the district and the state could use that material. And then the other thing that is in the pipeline, we have applied to be a sub-awardee to a federal grant that would focus on open homework. And that is specifically geared toward the non-STEM, because there's already a grant in place for STEM, high impact 20 disciplines. So GE high impact disciplines like psychology, business, economics, arts. If that comes through, then we will be able to offer stipends for teams that want to work on open homework. It will be connected to 1 or 2 certain OER textbooks. I am continuing my role full-time, at least for the fall, and we'll have to see what happens with these grants, but I anticipate the spring I will be working on this full-time as well. This is going to translate to more zero textbook cost degrees and certificates. We already have several in place. And I'm working a lot with some of our outreach classified professionals to make sure that we're getting this information into the hands of students. So one final thing I want to show you that we've done here at CRC, we have a dedicated page now that lists the ZTC degrees and certificates. And this actually isn't completely up to date because I know we have more in place, but we haven't, we're doing an analysis right now to push that information through. But one thing that we decided to do at CRC is there is a program map for all of our degrees and certificates, and there's one for local degrees, for transfer through CSU, and transfer through IGETC, which is CSU or UC. There's something happening within curriculum where the requirements for both CSU and UC, they're kind of combining, and there's something new called CalGETC, which will go into place by fall of 2025. So there will only be one map moving forward that's a transfer map. But what we have done is, if there is at least one zero textbook cost section offered of a class, we've added this Z subscript to the program maps. And then there's a little footnote at the bottom of the page that explains to students what that Z means. I worked with the developers who created this map maker program. They're at ARC. They worked with me all summer long to get this instituted. So it's really easy for me to update these maps now. And for whatever reason, the other colleges said it was still too hard and they didn't want to do it. So again, we're leading the way. We're the only college that has this information published this way, so that students and counselors and success coaches and you all can see very easily which of our courses are being offered as zero textbook costs. I think that's the end of my spiel. So I'll stop sharing and then open it up for questions. I didn't see questions coming in, just a few comments, and Emily provided a link to the website. But I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Could we interface Zero Textbook with Canvas in a general sense in the future, you think? So like students could go in the Canvas course and automatically right away see Zero Textbook materials, and there'd be our own repository of all these materials, so we can organize and kind of use these across all courses and et cetera. For would that be possible, you think?
Yeah, Mark. So currently, I'm gonna get to, I think there's my preferred OER platform that I encourage faculty to adopt is LibreText. And the reason that I recommend that platform is that it allows you to easily edit an OER if you want to make a change in something. So like the OpenStax books are amazing. But if you come across a chapter or a page and you decide, I'd really like to change the example and make that more relevant to my students, there's no way for you to do that within the OpenStax platform. And so that's why I encourage faculty to use LibreText. And if there's ever an OER that you find someplace else that is not on LibreText, we can ask, it's called a harvesting request, and we can ask them to pull it into their platform, and they will. So there's a couple things also with LibreText that I like, because you can actually pull the textbook, you can pull a cartridge from the LibreText website and upload it into Canvas, so that every chapter becomes a module within your course. And let me get to a couple pages so I can show you that. There's also LibreCommons, which is a catalog of all the LibreText books, and we currently have a designation for Los Rios, and then our own dedicated page for CRC. So let me show you a couple of things.
I just popped the LibreText Commons in the chat, Andy.
Thank you, Emily. Hey, Emily, will you also look at the website, and there's a LibreText page. At the top of the page, there's a link to a PD workshop that Jenna did that also might be helpful for folks who want to pull a LibreText into their. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you a couple things. This is the LibreCommons catalog, and you can search the entire catalog here, but up in the upper right-hand corner, this is where you see Campus Commons, and we have one instance for the entire district. But within the district, there are individual campuses. And so when I know that faculty have remixed or created their own OER, I add it to our own individual kind of page. And then the other thing I'll show you, this is an example of what it looks like when you pull a LibreText textbook into your course. So this is a math textbook, and the chapter comes in as the module name. Now you could, of course, change this to anything you want. You could change the names of these. You could add, like if you wanted to add homework in the middle of this, you would just, add a new page to that individual module. But the way that it pushes through is each page of the textbook comes through as a content page. And they can look through it here, and all of the same tools that are available on the main site are available here. So if they want a PDF of this page, they can look at it here. The only thing that doesn't push through in this, which they have to go to the main site, which is what this link is up here, is the annotation tool that is available through the LibreText platform, and it's not pushing through up here. So that makes me question it, but I'll show you what that looks like. So if students want to annotate the text or add notes to the text, this is the annotation tool. And I'm going to ask Delmar about this. Like, how do we get that to show when they open it up to full screen? I'll ask about that. Does that kind of answer your question, Mark? Or
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? The other thing I want to,
I don't have really a question, but I guess number one, probably just want to thank you for all of this. I've learned so much that I didn't realize that I didn't know about ZTC and being able to wear two hats in terms of, on the student services side, be able to direct students to what a zero textbook cost means, and having those symbols on not just the course, but on our GE patterns and everything. That's just been so helpful, educating students on what that means. But I just really learned a lot about how you can truly shape your curriculum to what you want it to be by going to these different resources. Like, so it's almost like you're not alone doing the work, because there's this other huge community out there that is doing this work, and they're there to help you. I mean, they've got different groups that you can join and stuff like that. So I just wanted to thank you for opening my eyes to a different kind of way to support our students that I didn't realize was so robust. And so I just want to say you're fabulous, Andy. If I had the will to give you a huge raise, I would do that. But check your bank account today. Because you might find a little bit in there that might help offset all the work.
yes, I did log into my bank account this morning, and I was super thankful for that. I will say that I feel like the work that we have done in the last 2 years is probably, I'm going to get emotional, like the most impactful work I have ever done. So I'm so proud of everybody just like doing this work. I know how hard it is. I have written an OER textbook. I know how hard it is. So I've just been blown away with the amount of work that people have put into this and jumped on board. So, okay, let me take a drink of water. My ask of everybody who's here is, if there is the acceleration grant that I mentioned, if anybody is interested in working on a specific project or they have something in mind, please try to contact me this week so I can start getting that ball rolling. The application process is not that intense, but I want to make sure that we have things written into it so that you are getting what you hope to get out of it. My hope is that we will write in stipends for faculty who are going to be doing this work. I would also like to do just kind of like another GE application so that we can open up the OER award program for folks who weren't able to finish it up or folks who weren't able to take advantage of it. That's one ask. Two is if I kind of pushed it out to people who were enrolled in the ZTC course. If you're interested in potentially working on that open homework project, to let me know about that, because we should find out probably in September or October if we get that grant. And so we're gonna want to start getting those teams together, and that would be an additional stipend that will be available for faculty. And then for folks who are in CTE programs, we do have some dedicated funding because a lot of those areas, there just isn't OER out there. And so we're looking at ways to try to supplement programs where in some cases we're actually purchasing textbooks for courses. So I have some funds available this year for that as well. And we're kind of in a tough situation right now because a lot of our CTE programs are in flux where we lost the main coordinator, faculty coordinator, and in some cases we have just an interim that's in there right now. But if you are in a CTE program and there are things that you need, please reach out to me because I have money to spend and I want to support you. Emily?
I raised my hand because there was a question in the chat about elaborating on the open homework. Could you tell more about that?
Yeah, so the way that we wrote the grant application is that it would be a team, and it would be people from Los Rios, and then there's a college, I think it's in Hawaii, University of Hawaii was also included in the grant application, and it would be for a specific core course. So I'm just going to use Psych 300 as an example, where they would be creating homework and assessment directly tied to an OER textbook for that class. So that faculty who have maybe been reluctant to switch over because they're relying on publisher content for like PowerPoint slides or assessments, that this would help create some of that ancillary material and they might be more open to switching over. LibreText has an open homework platform, so it's got two elements. One is called Studio, which is H5P technology, which allows you to create interactive questions. And then the homework system is called Adapt. And it's supposed to be, it's still being developed, but it's supposed to be one of those types of homework systems where it starts an assessment with the student and can quickly assess how they're answering the questions, whether they are understanding the concept or whether they need a little bit more reinforcement. And based on those answers, if they need more reinforcement, it's going to send them off into this direction to start working on some questions there until they can grasp whatever it is they need to grasp to put them back on track. We have a workshop planned here on Friday, October 6th. It's going to be happening from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. We are hosting it at CRC, and it's going to be focusing on Adapt. I think that workshop, he's primarily focusing on STEM, but it will be open to everybody. So you, if you're interested in learning more about it, it's going to be in person here in the Wynn Center on Friday, October 6th. And as soon as I get more details about that, I will be publishing it. But we're actually going to have snacks for breakfast, and lunch will be provided as well. And the district office is kicking down money for that. So that is happening. And then there's some other kind of workshops that are happening through the fall related to ADAPT, some that are virtual. So if you're not able to come to the in-person event, there's stuff that will be available as well.
Well, about the adapt homework this marketing, those trees you're talking about, learning trees, are really good. I'm trying to apply this to chemistry, and I found that you have to do it layer after layer after layer, because every homework type, you have to learn different programming mechanics of how to edit those and create those. And so, at least for me, it's been a bit of work. So if you just take it a chunk at a time, then it's doable, I think. But right now, when you're first trying to bring in the homework, the biggest trouble I found is that you have to go to many sources of homework, because my main text for the course doesn't have a sufficient homework base to it. So if you go that route, you have to diversify into having a whole catalog of, say, chemistry books, to homework from them, to pick through to create homework sets for chapters that you're the textbooks you're using. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that up. So it's a bit of work,
Yeah.
and so I think the best thing to do is just approach it via layering in better and better systems. Okay.
Thank you, Mark. And Mark has done so much work in chemistry to create these homework systems. That's another thing about having an open homework system, is it's like crowdsourcing, right? So the more people that get involved, the more questions you will have access to. Chemistry is one area that has a bunch of questions already within ADAPT, primarily because Delmar Larson, who's the founder of LibreText, is chemistry faculty at UC Davis. And so he's really passionate about this, and he's worked hard to try to get a big question bank in there. But Mark is right. It takes time to filter through all of that information and try to figure out what is the best thing for my students. And a question, might be okay, but you'd like to refine it. And right now, the process to do that within ADAPT is really clunky. You have to download the question and then upload it, and then you're able to edit it. You can't edit, there's not a button that you can just click and say, make a copy of this so that I can now edit it. I think that is something that they're working on, but yeah, it takes a lot of work to do this stuff. And so I'm working really, really hard to make sure that faculty are getting compensation for this work, because I know how much work it is. Any other questions or comments?
I have to say, I love the zero textbook cost stuff, OER, because it allows the instructor to finally control materials for the class and bring things in. So I think it's very creative, very wonderful for the instructors, for the students. It's especially wonderful for instructors. So I know it's a big load of work, but ultimately it'll be the best thing, and it'll get easier down the line. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. The last thing I brought this up. Are you still seeing my screen, the LibreText resources? My light just went off in my office. Okay, thank you. There's a couple things on here that if you, no, it's not this screen. Where is it? Oh, it's the Creative Commons shells, which is down here, the Canvas Commons shells. So we have created Canvas Commons shells for all of the OpenStax books and then some other textbooks, and these are organized by CAC. So if you are using a LibreText book and you would like to put it inside your Canvas course like this, but you just don't have the bandwidth to try to set that up, you can request that we do that for you. And there's a request form right up here. So request a LibreText Canvas Commons template. I have classified professionals who will pull the textbook into a Canvas Commons shell, which is what you saw here. And we use the CVC OEI kind of course rubric. So there is other material in here, but the way that it's designed is like anything that's in purple, you just know I'm supposed to delete this or rewrite it. And if there are things that you don't want within the class, like they all come with an orientation module. Maybe you already have an orientation module that you've developed. You just would either unpublish this or when you're pulling it into your actual shell, you just wouldn't pull this into your actual shell. So there are some things that you are still going to have to modify, but if you're interested in having a shell that has all of the book already pulled in, we can do that for you. And on the website, here's a list of all the things that have already been created. So in some cases, for the OpenStax stuff, we just did that automatically. And then in other cases, we had faculty who said, hey, can you pull this in for me? And we created it, and then we'll post it on this website. All right, well, if there's no other questions or feedback or anything else, I don't see any reason that we need to stick around until 11. I think it's supposed to go to 11, but I will stay on in case you have any questions or concerns. I'll stop the recording. Let's see. And maybe